Hello, friends. Opportunity Uplift here. And I'm starting the part two of the college application process series that I'm doing. And this section is going to be called Who Are You? So, before you get started with the college process, you have to really know, kind of who you are and reflect on the last 4 years of high school, unless you were in homeschool or in alternative schooling. Again, thinking through, what you did to get your GED or diploma, because it has defined who you are. And then also, it's going to give you some indicators on who you want to be and what you want to learn as you go to college. So, you want to be able to communicate, what are your personal assets, your achievements, your goals. And different reasons for you applying to college and specific programs. So, I'm going to cover two main topics in this video. One is going to be how to create a brag sheet, like what is in it and who it should go to. And then two is going to be navigating common concerns that may come up as you start the college application process, and how to combat those. So, first of all, what is a brag sheet? I know brag can sound a little off. No one wants us to be arrogant. But this is actually really important to kind of hype yourself up. But essentially, it is a document that summarizes a student's achievements, activities, leadership roles, and interests. It especially will help teachers and counselors as they write the letter recommendations because, again, you want it to be more personalized and not generic. So, in this brag sheet, you're sharing all about you so the teacher can write a stronger letter, and also maybe tie things to your brag sheet as well. I would also say it's for yourself to just refer back to, especially as you move forward with the college application process. Some of these things in here may go in something like the Common App. It may come in your supplements, or maybe in a scholarship essay. There are things you can pull from your brag sheet, so it's kind of like a long document to use for the next few months. So, part one of what is in a brag sheet. This is sort of like, again, who you are, all about you overview. So, you should ask yourself, what is your strongest personal asset? So, that could be something like you have a lot of empathy, or maybe you are someone who is an active listener. Maybe you're someone who is very resilient. You should really pause to really tell yourself and also those around you, like your teachers and those writing letters, like what is your biggest personal asset, so they might be able to also reflect that in your essay and also know what's important to you and what you're bringing to the table, especially as you apply to college and like admission offers to look at who you are. You also should want to think through, what are some adjectives that describe you. Some examples could be you're creative, maybe you are ambitious, maybe you're intelligent, you're a lifelong learner, you're committed, you're bold, you're driven. Again, whatever adjectives describe you. And choose the top five. You don't want to go crazy because you can't be everything everywhere all at once. So, what are those key five adjectives that describe you? And then you want to kind of go over some highlights about yourself. So, very high level, but asking some key questions in the scenario. So, one, what is your proudest moment? And that can be in school, it can be out of school, it can be at home, but mostly, again, sharing what is your proudest moment. And that's why I say, again, you're going to want to reflect over the last 4 years. Two is, what is a challenge or hardship that you faced? Sometimes you see folks talk about this in your essay, your college essay. You don't have to, but it's good to kind of reflect on what you've kind of been through to get to where you are today. And if you're comfortable as well, sharing that with a person who was writing letter of recommendation. I will say also, unfortunately, some scholarship essays may access as well. It could be like a hardship or a barrier. I don't know if I agree with them asking about your trauma, but sometimes that may be the case as you're applying to scholarships as well. And then third is you want to tell your what is a unique skill about you. So what's like special? Oftentimes, admission officers are going to want to find someone who's like very quirky, very out there. Again, like bringing something new to their campus and the community. So, what is a unique skill that you have? Maybe you are an artist. Maybe you have like a really random activity you do, like I don't know, like juggling or like pole vault. But again, like what is a unique skill that you hold in your life? And it doesn't have to be anything that's like, Olympic level or crazy, right? It's what is unique to you and something that you care about and that you value as a skill. And then the last question you want to ask yourself is, what drives you? And you can take this question a couple different routes. It can be what drives you academically, like why is it what drives you to, go to college, go to school. It could be what drives you in your career. It could be what wakes you up in the morning. You again want to pause and be able to like reflect on this and think again, what kind of makes you just be you every single day and go to school and go to work and go to different extracurriculars. What pushes you towards that? Is there a goal you're trying to reach towards? And then, the third section is gonna kind of be personal information. I would say more so this is for you and maybe your parents, and also if you have someone helping you throughout the college application process, just to know again like what is your legal name, your address, your email, your date of birth, and who are your parents. So more just like in case information. So kind of like contact. Now on to the second part of a brag sheet. The way I'm setting this up is a little weird because usually it's like in a grid. So if you actually want a real brag sheet, I have one in my description in my ultimate college guidebook if you want that. But you don't really need to get that. You could just do it at home too. It's pretty easy. But you want to talk through your leadership roles as well as your different achievements and honors. So what I recommend on how to set it up is kind of section by section and then in one line. So for example, you'll talk about what is the name of the activity or leadership or space that you were a leader or member in. So it could be an organization, it could be a club. Maybe you're part of the baking club, maybe you're part of the newspaper or editorial club. It could be a sport, it could be an internship. But again, what is the name of that association or group that you are part of in which you held a role? You also want to indicate the years you're involved. So, for example, was it in ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, maybe all? And then you want to talk about what is the position you held. Typically, it's better to be a leadership position, but you can still mention that you were maybe a member or maybe you were a volunteer. Again, what is that role that you held at the specific extracurricular activity space? And then going on to honors and achievements. In a similar vein, you want to talk through what is the name of the award or honor you got, what is the reason. So when I say what is the reason, what I'd recommend looking into is like when you got this honor or award, who is it for? Maybe it's because you had the highest grades. Maybe it's because you are noted for your community service or the way that you care about a specific issue. Again, like what is the reason for getting this award? So there's some context around there. And then lastly is what year did you receive the award? Ninth, 10th, 11th, or 12th? Now, going on to the third section of the brag sheet, this is what I kind of call uh, leadership style. So, kind of going even deeper. Before we talked about leadership roles, I want to get a little bit more into nitty gritty. So, you understand who you are as a leader, and also, again, person writing a letter of recommendation can understand like what qualities do you have as a leader, whether it's in school, out of school, and other spaces. So, one question that's a bit more high level is your own personal description of yourself as a leader. So, what does that mean? How have you shown up as a leader? Maybe you're saying you're someone who tends to lead by example and you give some more reasons. Maybe you are a servant leader, meaning you are someone who uplifts others and does it on behalf of others to do the amazing work. You can look up some different leadership styles as well on Google and see which one fits the bill for you. Second question is talking about traditional leadership roles. And when I say traditional, I typically mean things that you have done within a school setting. So that can be, again, in a club, in a specific class, and maybe if you were on an athletics team and you were a captain as well, talking through what have those roles been, and also why were you in these roles, right? Give some explanation into what brought you into these positions and why they're so important for you to have pursued in your life. So again, we kind of know about your passions to be in these specific leadership roles. The third question is thinking through non traditional leadership roles that you've been involved in. This can include taking care of your family, working a job as per yourself and your family. So, really kind of thinking what's outside of school and something that you may not expect to be a leadership role, but you can definitely view it as that. I think this question is extremely important for folks, especially if you are a first gen low income student and you have a lot on your plate. There may be some things that are not considered a traditional leadership role that you want to define and say, like, oh, this to me is a form of leadership that I've done. And I want to go into why it's so important that I've done it. And then lastly, what is the most important leadership role that you've held? And um, when you talk about, like again, like which leadership role is most important to you, you want to also answer the why. You want to also kind of talk through how have you grown in this role and what is the impact you've made? Because my assumption is if this is the most important leadership role to you, you've been in it for a hot minute. So you've likely maybe done it for 2 years, 3 years, and you've really been able to do some amazing work and deliverables and whatever, build community, whatever it is in this role, you've likely done some things there. So really give yourself that credit and talk through what you've done and what you've learned from it, what you've gained from it, and what you've given back as this leadership role. One thing I will note is when you are describing your leadership, I highly recommend um, to use kind of like metrics in this position. You'll actually see this in the common application when they actually talk about like your extracurriculars and your leadership roles is like to describe what you've done. So when I say a metric, for example, um, let's say that a you are the president of the food insecurity club. And this means a metric would be like you led a team of 15 people to achieve X result. And this result could be to donate 800 pounds of food to a local food pantry or homeless shelter. So again, adding some metrics helps the reader to better understand what you've done and the impact you've made. And also, I recommend in this section of leadership style and your leadership roles is really to choose the roles in which you've committed the longest to, because that kind of shows that you're really passionate about it, and there's a reason why you've stuck in it for so long. And typically, the longer you've been in the role, the more you'll have to say as well. Now, going on to the last part of the brag sheet. This is what I call future planning. So, kind of looking ahead. When I say ahead, typically that means like looking ahead to college. So, for example, you might want to answer the question of, do you have an idea of what a career path would look like? And if so, what is that? So, let's say that maybe you're someone who wants to go to computer science. That means you want to be a software engineer in a specific industry. Or maybe you're someone who really cares about a specific policy issue. So, you want to enter the policy role and work in DC one day, and you want to again kind of talk through this if you have an idea. I will say you don't need to have an answer to this question. You are likely 17, 18. You don't need to know the next couple of years. But if you have an idea, it's good to share out loud to yourself and then also to anyone who's going to be writing their letter of recommendation or going to be involved in your college application process. But again, I will note it takes time, experience, networking to really figure out what you want your career to look like. And that could change when you go to college as well. However, I will say these are a couple of questions that you can ask yourself to help you better uh, maybe get a grasp of again like what career you might like. So you could ask yourself, what are some of your favorite classes or subjects in school that might help to identify a career pathway. For example, like if you really enjoyed doing hands-on work in like culinary arts, you might want to be a chef or a cook. Or maybe if you really enjoyed uh, drama class and writing, you want to enter the world of like directing and being a filmmaker. Just making them on the spot. It might help to brainstorm a couple of things. Two, you can ask yourself, what jobs have you heard of in the past that excite you? So if you're on LinkedIn or you just maybe have friends and family who are in different positions, like when they talk about their roles, like do any of them make you smile or make you want to learn more? That also might be an indication of what you might want to consider pursuing as a career. Um, and then lastly, this question is, what are some career goals you want to have at the end of college? I recognize again that this is looking almost 4 years ahead, maybe 5 years, depending on how long you're going to be in college. But if you're able to take a time to do that, it is really, really important that you're setting yourself up with some goals. Because of these career goals, again, are going to be achieved throughout college, you might also be able to talk about these in your personal statement or in your supplement as well. So you can think through again, are there internships and organizations you really want to work at? Is there research you want to do? Are there like learnings you want to have or specific knowledge you want to gain in your program, and that will then help a career path? Are there people you want to get connected to, or a specific community or um, association? Maybe it's like a research association, maybe it's like a think tank. Again, trying to really pause and reflect on a couple of career goals that you might have for yourself. So, again, these last three questions are to help you do that future planning and start to think what a career path could look like. I will preface that this could change, and I would understand if you're not at a point where you have a clear cut answer. that is okay, as long as you have some ideas that you can share out at the very least. What I will also recognize and note is you may not be in a position to have been able to explore a career, especially if you have a lot of classes, if you're taking care of family, or if you're working. So, wanted to give folks grace too if they're unable to answer this question. That is okay. Um, there are a couple of resources you can access. So if you go to College Board, they have a 5 ways to find your 5 ways to find career ideas kind of article. You can look through Glassdoor to see companies and titles. You can look through LinkedIn. You can also go to pre-college networking events too to explore some interest. Now, we have finished talking through the brag sheet. I'm now in these next 3 slides going to talk through some common concerns that I've seen come up for students as they're starting the college application process. And this is just my experience as I've worked with different cohort of students to apply for college, and this has come up, and they're very valid concerns. But I want to be able to help you sort of pass through them and overcome them so they're not a barrier for you in the process. So, let's go to the first concerns that I typically see. And these are sort of academic concerns. So I've seen students say, I have average or low grades, right? They don't have that perfect 4.0 or 3.9 or maybe 96, whatever, however you get grades in your school district. Um, or they might say, like, I didn't do that great in my classes in this specific year. And then might basically that's going to set them up for failure as they apply for college, or they're going to have more limited options. You might also have struggled by saying, like, oh, shoot, like, I didn't do that well in my honors or AP classes. And, like, that might look poorly in my application. You might also say, like, you couldn't take higher level classes like AP because maybe one, there wasn't space, or two, maybe it wasn't even offered at your school district or school. And then four is like maybe you're just not top of your class, and that concerns you. And again, it makes you feel like you're not going to be as a strong enough candidate. So these are all valid concerns to have. And here's what I will say in terms of like navigating through those concerns. One is grades are not everything. They're going to look holistically at your application. And I will also say, officers like to see improvement in grades. So maybe if you did bad in 1 year, but better another year, they'll see those ebbs and flows as well and take that into consideration. Two is there's going to be other parts of your application. So again, when I say holistic, that means they're looking at everything. So they're looking at your grades, they're looking at your test scores, but also they're looking at your story and what you've done like in school and out of school, where you can start to also build yourself up as a better candidate by talking about other strengths and other things that you're bringing to the table if you don't have as high as grades. And lastly, I will say a lot of schools actually have a very high acceptance rate. So like many 4-year colleges actually accept 50% more applicants. So in that sense, again, maybe if you don't have the grades that you need to get into a top 25, top 100 school, it is okay because you have other options. And if you're someone who says like, I really want to go to a top 25 school in the US, there's another way to get there, and that can also be going into a 2-year, so associate program that's a bit easier to get into, and then transferring. But because typically, if you transfer from a community college or a 2-year program, it's a little bit easier to get into a 4-year college, especially one that is a top 25 or top 50 school. The acceptance rates tend to be higher than would you have been applying as a high school senior. Of course, no, the caveat is that will depend on the specific program you're applying to. Now, the second concern that I see is really around time management and how much there is to do in that year, along with your applications. So you might be thinking like, "Shoot, I am juggling a lot. Like my plate, my buffet plate is overflow. Things are slipping off of it." You might even be thinking like, "Hey, is college even worth it at this point? Like, do I want to like go through this 8-month process to go to school for again for 4 years?" Which is very valid. And three, it might just seem impossible to do all of this, like impossible. So I'll first talk about is college worth it? Uh, and I think this is a very loaded question. It even in today's age in 2024, it kind of depends on your industry and your career. So I will say I believe it is worth it from my personal experience. But it's not always the right fit for everyone, and that is completely okay. There are many other pathways to success after high school, and that can be a 2-year college, it can be a trade school, it can be an apprenticeship program, it can be just going to work and learning on the job. So there's a lot of pathways, and you have to really pause to reflect on what is right for you and what is going to be the most uh, safe and the most proactive and the most beneficial learning environment for yourself as you build out your career. Again, I will say that I personally benefited from college, and I believe many folks will. And the other caveat is there are also a good amount of jobs that will require a college diploma, right? So you to have a bachelor's degree to get your foot into the door for a job. So if you're looking for jobs that again are going to require you to have a degree, then in this sense you would need to apply to college. So, again, sorry, I had to pause to get water. But again, I really do recommend going to college. But what I will say is look at jobs, and if you need a degree, get a degree. Second thing I would say is attend college also helps with a lot of connections in your network too, as you're looking to get different jobs. So it's also a place to build relationships. But again, you know what's going to be best for you, and if it's college, it's wonderful. If it's not, that's okay as well. In terms of time management, I know. Trust me, I've been through it myself. When you have classes and you have homework and you have extracurriculars, maybe even sports, there's too much on your plate as a high school student. I think to this day, high school students and students in general just are doing too much and have to do way too much because once you graduate high school and college, like you never have that much on your plate. So I think it's crazy how much pressure you put on a high school student. So I really do feel for you. One way to navigate this is to use a schedule planner. So that could be maybe like an actual like physical planner that you're using to write things out. Or what I really recommend for students because it's free is using Google Calendar to map out your week because you can sort of carve out 1 to 2 hours every week, or maybe it's every other day to work on your college applications, your SAT, right? So maybe in that Google Calendar, you're able to hold the time slot of like I'm making this up. Maybe it's like you're holding them from like 1 to 4 p.m. on Saturdays to do college applications. But again, you're building out a routine and really setting time aside each week for yourself. And you have on your calendar to say, I'm going to pause everything to work specifically on these applications. And if you don't have 3 hour blocks, maybe it's an hour block. Again, you'll have to work through your schedule to see where it fits the best. The last common category of concerns that I see students face is being overwhelmed and stressed. I wish I could say that you will never face this, but in life, you're going to get stressed and you're going to get overwhelmed. It happens, especially when you have impending deadlines. And as I said before, like a lot of things on your plate, and tend to really try to prioritize different deliverables and projects. You might get stressed, and that is okay. So I've heard some students say that it's just too much to do to the point where you feel stuck. Like it's kind of like if you have like 80 different pages on the floor, things to clean up. Like you don't even know where to start because there's so many ways or so many things you have to do that you just kind of pause due to that level of stress and being overwhelmed. Might be asking yourself like, how do I get it all done? Like 4 or 5 months to do this process like seems like a long time, but it really does fly by. And lastly, you may also be saying, hey, like, I don't have any resources for this process. Like, it's just me doing it by myself. And like, how do I do that by myself? Especially if you are a first gen low income student and don't have anybody in your family who's been through the process. So, a couple of ways to overcome these barriers. One is I highly recommend reaching out to your guidance counselor, a trusted teacher, or if you have any college access programs out there, to start having conversations on the ways they may be able to support you. Because if you don't know if you don't ask, and most of the times they're going to want to help you because they came into education to support students like yourself. So it doesn't hurt to ask. And again, like some of them are actually there to help you, especially your guidance counselor. Uh, so help is out there. You just have to be able to pause and look and really and take that first step to ask. If you don't ask, folks are not going to know you need that help. And third is start with with your reason for college and what your list looks like. So when I say what is your reason, always go back to why are you personally applying to college? And almost back to that brag sheet, like what drives you? Like why do you want to pursue a higher education? And why do you want to pursue a degree? Remember that list, right? Remember the motivations you have going into this and use that to push you forward, right? To get you to that finish line. Because that again, I guess, is what's gonna wake you up every morning and every day. Um, go to your classes, but also to spend this extra time to apply to college and go into this very important next chapter of your life. I hope you found this helpful. I know it's kind of like words, but I hope that the resources and at least the tips to navigate them might be able to provide you a little bit more support and ways to move forward as you are in the thick of going in this college application process. If you have any questions regarding these, please let me know. So I know that next steps are important for folks. So again, how do you hold yourself accountable? How am I holding you accountable as you're watching this video? So what I recommend is one, create your brag sheet. And then after you create it, please do share it with your recommenders. So those who are going to write your letter recommendations or those who are going to be very involved in you applying to college, share this with them so they have access to it. And of course, if you're able to, give me a follow, subscribe. I hope that the information I'm providing you is going to really push you forward and provide you what you need to complete the college application process. We're only at part two, so there's a lot more to come. As I always say, if there's any follow-up questions you have, please do like leave in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. Or you can always DM me as well on one of my social media platforms. I appreciate you listening in. And again, reach out if you have any questions or also any suggestions and things you might want to see on this channel. Thank you so much, y'all.